Chuck Woolery is a massively irrelevant game show host who's also an insane right-winger. And he went on Fox News where he proceeded to berate Matt Damon, randomly, with the stalest right-wing arguments ever.
For you in this life or the next, but if justice does come for you in this life, her name will be Elizabeth Warren.
Joining us now with reaction is actor, legendary game show host, thinker, world-class bass fisherman, Chuck Woolery. Chuck, it's great to see you.
I'm not an actor, and I have film to prove it, so no.
Well, I think you're a great actor. So, if you turn a commencement speech at MIT, which is this famous, impressive school,
which will never happen,
into an infomercial for Elizabeth Warren, how grubby does that make the experience?
You know, it's a very interesting situation. Here's Matt Damon, one of my favorite actors. I love Born Legacy, all of those things.
Yeah.
Great. Love him as an actor.
Goodwill.
It's flipped on its head. In the 50s in Hollywood, if you spoke against for communism, you were blackballed. In the 90s and 2000s in Hollywood, if you speak for communism, you're rewarded for it. But if you speak against communism, you're blackballed.
For sure.
So everything's flipped upside down. Now, with Matt Damon, he's been doing this for years. I actually have a YouTube video that I put up maybe 4 years ago on Matt Damon about this very subject. If he is so troubled about making so much money, $76 million reported, by the way,
wow,
and paying so little in taxes and so upset with the rich and all this kind of thing and the equities involved, he can go to Parkersburg, West Virginia, and he can give them as much money as he wants to. The federal government has a place for him. And
they can do that.
But they never do that.
Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay, this is probably the number one uncle at the Thanksgiving dinner table argument that all of us have heard from when we were young until now. And what's stunning to me is that they never, ever, ever listen to the counterpoint. Because if they do, they'd go, yeah, I gotta come up with a new argument, don't I? That one ain't gonna work. I mean, look at that. Oh, yeah, stupid liberals? Well, why don't you go give more money to the government if you really love them high taxes? Well, I would say, number one, the idea that liberals and progressives like high taxes, period, is just not true. So if you look at the tax proposals from major candidates and major politicians in both parties, you find out very quickly it's the Democrats who actually cut taxes for more people. 90% of the American people. They only want to raise taxes, and a reasonable amount, by the way, and specifically the marginal rate, on the richest people in the country. The Republicans are the opposite. They'll raise your taxes more if you're in the bottom 90%, and they only want to cut it if you're rich. So right off the bat, your premise is incorrect. I've often said, as a card-carrying liberal and progressive, I've never met a middle-class tax cut I didn't love. So that's point number one. Point number two is, hey, idiot, obviously you have to make taxes part of the system, or you can't afford to do the shit you gotta do to be a modern civilization. Why don't you just go pay more taxes yourself, instead of telling everybody else they gotta pay taxes too? Well, because how the fuck are you going to afford Social Security? How the fuck are you going to afford universal health care? How the fuck are you going to afford roads and bridges and the police department and the military if you don't have it as part of a system? They act like it's a gotcha. Gotcha? Why don't you just go pay more taxes? Because there wouldn't be enough money to fund all those different fucking things, you moron! You insane moron! God, that's such a stupid argument. And then, notice, and I love this guy for so many reasons, even the way he talks. Like, I would caricature his voice by saying he has that classic game show host voice, but he's literally a game show host, so I'm not caricaturing him, I'm just describing him. He's hired because he's got that fakeness. Well, back to you, Chet. Why don't you tell them what they got? A new car! Oh, stop with your fake voice. But, he pulled out the communism card. The communism card, which hasn't been used by any intelligent person ever, but definitely hasn't been used by the mainstream society in decades. These goddamn communists! Matt Damon and Elizabeth Warren are communists! Really? Matt Damon, you don't understand that any credibility you had, which you had none to begin with, but any that you would have had on the issue of politics, done. Dunzo. Over. After you call Matt Damon and Elizabeth Warren communists. I mean, these are people who, in an international context, are just centrists. They're just centrists, like Bernie. People are like, oh, Bernie's so radical. Only according to the political spectrum in the U.S., among the establishment, among the politicians. Among the American people, he's a centrist because the polls show the American people agree with him on almost everything. Internationally, he's a fucking centrist. You know, go talk to somebody from Sweden or Denmark. They'll be like, what are you talking about? You're going to call Elizabeth Warren and Matt Damon communists. How much money has Matt Damon made from movies? The dude is a capitalist through and through. Elizabeth Warren obviously is in favor of a hybrid system of capitalism and socialism, which is what every other modern nation has. It's social democracy. But what do? Since they don't know definitions, they don't know terms, and they don't care. They just want to smear people. Communism! Okay, communism, Marxism, that's state ownership of everything. We just spoke about how Cuba recently decided we might legalize micro businesses and small businesses for private ownership. But the idea there was everything is owned by the state. That's communism. Elizabeth Warren and Matt Damon are nowhere near that on the political spectrum. But this is what Fox News is. You allow on old idiots to give old bigoted opinions based on nothing but their gut and a total lack of understanding about basic political terms and definitions. So if you watch Fox, fine, but I hope you watch it for the comedy because there's certainly no news and information coming out of there.